Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Dribble Drive podcast. I'm your host, Austin Render. Dalton Shetler is down at the Cherokee Invitational in North Carolina, so he is preoccupied with preparation for their game tonight with Ole Miss. So we'll get him back next week ahead of the Dribble Drive Super Bowl. We'll certainly have plenty to talk about a week from today. A reminder, hey, if you're just joining us for the first time, if you've stumbled across us, welcome. We're so happy to have you. This is the Dribble Drive podcast focusing on Big Ten women's basketball. You can follow us on Twitter, Dribble Drive WBB, to stay up to date on all of our podcast episodes. You can also subscribe to the Back Home Network YouTube channel. That's where you can keep up to date on all of our live show announcements. Like today, we are live on that YouTube channel. You can also find us afterwards on Apple and Spotify podcasts. Give us a download there. Give us a rating. Leave us a review. All that stuff helps us as we continue to promote this podcast. This is episode 81 of the Dribble Drive. We're going to touch on some teams that missed some opportunities this week for marquee victories and preview the resumption of play in the Big Ten, which is coming up this Sunday. It won't be our longest episode by any means. We've got obviously with Christmas time around, we don't have a ton of games to talk about or to preview, but we'll certainly have some fun here with you today. Without further ado, let's jump into what happened over the past week. And we'll start with the game last night, which was the lone, I think, big win, you could say, for the Big Ten this week. It wasn't an amazing week for the conference in terms of opportunities, but USC gets I called it on Twitter a rock fight. We might have to just coin it like a USC game. I mean, this is a team that's just going to win a lot of basketball games like this. They don't have that offensive punch that they had a year ago with Juju Watkins, and I think we forget, Dalton brings it up, Kiki Iriafen, some other pieces that are no longer there as well. There was a 1-2 punch that they don't have on this year's team. Obviously, if Juju Watkins is there, this team looks totally different. We might get to see a decent portion of this team back with Juju Watkins next season. But for now, what Lindsey Gottlieb is working with is a team that doesn't necessarily have the offensive punch, but has an incredible defense. And her staff have done a wonderful job. They just kind of shut the faucet off on you. And Cal shot 36% from the floor. They made 1 3-pointer in this game. Cal was rolling there in the third quarter. They came out of halftime on fire, had a pretty good lead there, 7 points in the third quarter, and USC started chipping away, down 2 at the end of the third quarter, and they just kind of slowly figured out Cal's defense, and they slowly shut down Cal's offense. USC couldn't score in that third quarter. It was a tough watch offensively for the Trojans, but this is what USC is going to do a lot this season, which is in the third quarter, look like a team that is not going to win the game. They don't look like a top 25 team, but their defense keeps them in games to where the offense eventually figures it out and they go on to win. That's going to be good enough to win a lot of games in the Big Ten. I don't think, and we've seen it a couple of times this year against the other USC, South Carolina, as well as Notre Dame and UConn, and Notre Dame to a lesser extent because they really should have won that game. But Notre Dame and South Carolina were 2 games that USC just wasn't on the same playing field as those 2 teams. And they kept it close with South Carolina for a while. But I think USC's playing style is going to work against a lot of teams in the Big Ten. It's going to work against some of those unranked teams. It's going to work against someone like the Ohio States of the world or a Washington of the world, as we saw the other day. It's probably not going to work against the Michigan, especially on the road. It's probably not going to work against the UCLA. It's probably not going to work against the Maryland. Those are the types of things I look at, and it's like, okay, their defense is going to keep them in a lot of games, and honestly, it's going to win them 11, 12 Big Ten games this year and probably get them a top 5 seed in the NCAA tournament. But is it going to be enough to allow them to compete and maybe pull an upset at home against Maryland, at home against UCLA? I don't think because what UCLA has is a good defense and a versatile offense that has solutions to your defense. And USC has a great defense, but they don't have that versatile offense yet. It's a lot on the shoulders of Jazzy Davidson. And as we've talked about on this podcast, that can be good when she's shining. And it can be tough because she's still a freshman playing her 13th game of the season, 12th game of the season. Like she's still figuring it out. And that's a lot. What was supposed to happen is she was supposed to be eased into this thing with Juju Watkins next to her, taking a lot of the attention. But now, Jazzy Davidson, 12 games into her career, and honestly, 4 games into her career, was the number one player on everybody's scouting report when you get ready for USC. So the fact that she's still putting up 24 points in this game and making an impact, rebounding, blocking, assisting, defending is marvelous. And it's a great, bright future for Jazzy Davidson. It's the others that I'm kind of waiting on Dunn to be more consistent. She had 15 points in this game. Kennedy Smith has not been that offensive punch that we thought she could be in year two. She's an excellent defender, though, and that certainly helps USC inside. They're not getting a lot of production off their bench. London Jones has been hit and miss. Obviously had a career high 28 the other night against Cal Poly, but then got in foul trouble and was pretty much absent in this game. Foul trouble was a big issue for USC as well. They defend so aggressively that sometimes you're going to get that tic-tac whistle type of game like this one was, and you're going to get yourself in some foul trouble. But overall, it's the same takeaways I've had from USC when they lost blowout games to good teams, when they beat Washington, when they narrowly lost to Notre Dame. I have the same stance on USC as I've had for a long time, which is this is a good team. It's probably 19th in the country, is probably a decent spot for USC right now. They're going to beat a lot of teams this year, but they're going to lose to the upper echelon teams because they just don't have that offensive punch. But good for them to avoid the upset here. Cal is 0-for still this year against Power 4 opponents, so you wanted to make sure you didn't lose this game. Would have been a hurtful loss for the resume for USC. They do get the win, and I think all in all, a good thing for USC to find ways to grind out games late, but it was not their most impressive performance by any means. They do get the job done, though. That was the win this week for the Big Ten. A lot of teams obviously had weeks off. They played maybe one game this week. It was against maybe directional schools. You think about some blowouts by Michigan and Maryland and Ohio State and Nebraska. They're not playing challenging teams this week. A couple teams did challenge themselves and had opportunities that they missed with opportunities here. Well, let's start. Stanford was the Big Ten killer this week. Let's start there. They beat Washington Friday night, 67-62. This was in Palo Alto. This was on Stanford's home floor. Yeah, I mean, Washington has shown at times this season a inability to consistently score the basketball. I think their defense is good. It's improved from last season, but at times they struggle to find ways to score. And we saw it at USC. We just talked about how good their defense is. We've seen it at times against like a Green Bay for Washington, where they struggled to score. A lot of the playing is built out of Savia Sellers. Can she be the microwave, as Dalton calls her? And more often than not, she has been this year. She was not in this game. And I think they're still waiting on Ella Dean to get going as well. But Avery Howell and Savia Sellers each had 13 points. Sellers turned it over 5 times. Ladine got into double figures, but it came up short. I think Bryn McGoy is a big part of the future for Washington. Another double-figure performance here for her. But all in all, Washington is a team that I think is improved from last season. Remember last year they had to go on that win streak down the stretch of the season just to get into the tournament. I think they're better. I think we know they're better than last season. And I think they're going to be a comfortable NCAA tournament team. I just don't know if they're ready to be like top 5 in the Big Ten level good. And obviously, transitive property does not work in sports. I get that. We love to use it. This Stanford team lost to Florida Gulf Coast, and they just beat both Washington and Oregon this weekend. I think Stanford's a decent team. I think they're going to look good in a down ACC. Could be a good year for Stanford to kind of build themselves back up. But this is one that was there for the taking for Washington. They could not get it done. And so I think, again, they might fall out. In fact, I don't know if we're going to get live top 25 here during our show. But they might fall out of the top 25. We'll see. But I think they're similar to USC, where I think we know what they are. But the difference right now between them and a USC is that USC finds ways to grind out wins. They grinded out a win against this Washington team. They just grinded out that win against Cal, whereas Washington has struggled to grind out the win against USC and to grind out the win against Stanford. So right now you're looking at Washington, you're saying, okay, you're not in the top 5 in the Big Ten right now. And I thought they were a couple weeks ago. I still think the future is better for Washington than it is right now. But this was just another example of the Achilles heel for Washington is when they need a bucket and Xavier Sellers maybe isn't going. Where do they turn to? And Stanford was able to take advantage of that. We mentioned Stanford was a Big Ten killer this week because then on Sunday, they just went for the full West Coast sweep, and they went down to San Francisco, which I guess isn't very far from Palo Alto, but they went there and beat Oregon 64-53. And this was a tight game for most of the game. Back and forth, Oregon was right in this, had several leads in this game. But when crunch time came about, Oregon looked like last year's Oregon, which is their defense is good enough to hold them in 2 games, but similarly to Washington, when the going gets tough at the end of a game, Oregon didn't really have that go-to person to turn to. And Oregon was led by Katie Fiso in this game with 14 points, but she did it on 4 of 15 shooting. Ahisa Tute continues to be a solid performer off the bench for Oregon. She had 14 points and 6 boards in this game. And then Mia Jacobs had 11 points, and that's it. They shot 32% from the floor. They hit just 2 3-pointers out of 14 attempts. This is a team that needs more out of Amina Muhammad. They need more consistently out of Avery Kane and Sarah Rambis. And some of the other contributors on this team have to be more consistent for Oregon because Katie Fiso, I don't think we have fully given Katie Fiso the flowers that she deserves. I saw it on the broadcast yesterday. And what she has done from last season to this season. I'm going to try and pull it up here. So last season, she was playing under 10 minutes a game. This season, it's at 29. Last season, she shot 38% from the floor. This year, it's 52. Last year, she was a 17% three-point shooter. This year, 36. It's not a huge part of her game. She doesn't shoot a ton. Rebounding's gone up from 0.8 to 2.6. Points have gone up from 3 to 14.5. And then assists have gone up from under 1 to 7.5. So Katie Fiso deserves her flowers. She has really turned into a skillful offensive scorer and facilitator for Kelly Graves. They've got to find more. And that's where you need Mia Jacobs to step in and be a little bit more involved offensively. I think they're still kind of figuring out the post. Ahisa Tute has been solid, but she's not the same type of post presence that Philly Che had been the past couple of seasons. They're missing that like Peyton Scott type of run the show player. Oregon's fine. I think they're in a similar boat to Washington, where I do think they're better than they were a year ago. But this is the second time now we've kind of seen them revert back to their old self. The other one was a win at Auburn. In a very low-scoring, ugly game, but they found a way to win, which they did a lot of last season. This one, they kind of, in the final quarter of this game, struggled offensively, couldn't get enough stops, and Stanford eventually pulled away. This was closer than the score made it look, but Stanford was just better down the stretch of this game. And Oregon, I think it's just going to find itself in that 10 to 13 range in the Big Ten, and they're going to need to beat the teams that come out to Eugene, maybe steal a couple on the road, end up 10-8 in the Big Ten. You're a tournament team, and you keep building if you're Kelly Graves. But this was a tough end of the game for Oregon. Just didn't quite have it down the stretch. So those were 2 missed opportunities that I think were very winnable games for both Washington and Oregon. This one less winnable. I think we kind of called this one out on last Monday's episode. UConn throttled Iowa 90-64. This was not a blowout at half. It was an 11-point game. But you just kind of felt like Iowa was just hanging on for dear life, even at half. And I don't know who's a good matchup for UConn, but I just didn't see it. I said the same thing when USC was getting ready to play them. I didn't think they had the offense to go toe-to-toe with UConn. Iowa, again, they've got to get more consistent play out of the others. Hannah Stolke led the way here with 17 points. Chit Chat Wright's been awesome. I think Iowa's going to win a lot of games in the Big Ten because of Chit Chat Wright, and that addition to this team is huge. She had another 16 points, 4 3-pointers in this game. But they didn't get a lot out of anybody else. Taylor Stremmel had 11 points, but she turned it over 6 times. That was a big key in this game. There were 2 things that haunted Iowa because they shot the ball well, 49% from the floor, 47% from 3. 2 things haunted Iowa. They turned the ball over 26 times. If you are going to beat UConn, you have to almost be perfect. And 26 turnovers is far from perfect. That killed Iowa. And they also just struggled defensively. UConn shot 52% from the floor, 45% from 3. Sarah Strong, Sarah Williams kind of had their way inside. And it did kind of feel like the post battle went to UConn, which it kind of felt like they had the advantage there. And the thing about UConn is they're a great defensive team. They're an aggressive defensive team. They go for a lot of steals, which we saw against Michigan. We saw against USC. We've now seen as they've just continued to beat up on the Big Ten. But Iowa just didn't feel like a great matchup in this game. But you know what? Good for Iowa for scheduling this game. Good for a lot of Big Ten teams have tried to schedule UConn. Michigan was the closest to taking them down. But just not a shocking scoreline here. And we're going to talk about it in a minute. But when you talk about the power rankings in the Big Ten and our Dribble Drive top 5, Iowa just seems like the 4th best team in the Big Ten. And I don't know if it's necessarily because they've blown me away. Like that, again, Baylor lost again yesterday. So that win is looking less and less impressive by Iowa. They certainly competed against Iowa State. They were right there with them. But I don't know, like, what is Iowa hanging its hat on right now? Right now, it's a win over probably a fringe top 25 Baylor team when the new polls come out here in a minute. And so to me, it's like, okay, I still believe in Jan Jensen. I believe in Hannah Stolke in this team to where they can be a top 5 team. It's almost more so that nobody's knocking the door down to take that spot. USC has shown its struggles of the last couple of weeks. Washington has shown its struggles. Michigan State, had they not lost to Wisconsin, they could be in that situation. They have a great opportunity tonight when they play Ole Miss. But Ohio State, I still can't get the taste out of my mouth of how bad they looked early in the season against UConn. And I kind of need to see them get tested again. They are this weekend. They're going to play UCLA at home. But I don't like who's knocking the door down to take that 4 spot from Iowa. Nebraska hasn't played anybody yet. They're still my 5, but I don't really feel like they can be moved up over Iowa because Iowa's at least tested itself. They've come up short twice, but they've at least played some teams. Nebraska has not yet. So to me, it's like, okay, I think Iowa's the 4th best team in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're going to end that way, but right now they've tested themselves, and I think that's going to prove fruitful for Jan Jensen and this team moving forward. But it's almost more so of, okay, well, all the challengers beneath them are not really making much of a push. So waiting for somebody to push into that top 5, and obviously it gets a little bit, you could say it gets clearer, you could say it gets muddier when Big Ten play begins. But we're going to see and maybe get some more answers as we see some of these teams try to play each other and beat each other. It's going to help us start to figure out where all these teams rank. But this was not unpredictable by Iowa. They competed in the first half. They just didn't have the full 40 minutes against the best team in the country in the UConn Huskies. That's kind of the notable scores from this week. A couple of notable things on the good side for UCLA injury-wise. Sienna Betts is back. She played her first minutes of the year Tuesday against Cal Poly, scored 5 points, had 2 assists, played 10 minutes in the game. Then she played more on Saturday against Long Beach State, scored 14 points, grabbed 5 rebounds, shot 6 of 9 from the floor. That adds a little bit more depth to a UCLA team who we have seen at times rely heavily on just their 6-lady rotation. So can they get more out of Sienna Betts and a little bit more out of the bench? And that could allow them to be a little bit fresher come the end of the season. Still waiting on Tamia Gardner to come back from her injury, but good to see Sienna Betts back out there, which I think really helps UCLA. More tough injury news for Maryland. Bree McDaniel is not going to play this year. Remember, she tore her ACL midseason last year, has been rehabbing to try and get back. She was a part of the crew at Big Ten Media Day for Maryland. She is out. She announced this week that she is going to redshirt this season and aim to come back stronger next year. But no Bree McDaniel. That's already on the heels of no Kayleen Smeichel for the Maryland Terrapins. So that's a tough break for a top 10 team in the country that just keeps losing players. Yarden Gerzon played really well this week. So did Oluchi Akanawa. But it's just, you're going to have to find more out of your bench and more out of your freshmen like Addie Mack. They're still without Saylor Poffenbarger's been hurt for a couple of games. Now they need to get her back. But that's tough news for Maryland, who continues to play shorthanded and will now play shorthanded without Smeichel and McDaniel for the rest of the season. Let's get to our stars of the week, and let's name some stars of the week. Here they are. We kind of went with the same theme as last week, which was career high performances, season high performances, stuff like that. For Rutgers, Faith Blackstone, a big reason why they were able to pull out the win over Lafayette. She had 22 points and 12 rebounds in the win for the Scarlet Knights. London Jones of USC had that career high 28 points against Cal Poly earlier in the week. She was pretty absent Sunday night, struggling with foul trouble against Cal. And then freshman Sienna Harvey for Washington, a career high 22 points and a bounce back win for the Huskies over Pacific. Again, that's a team that needs a little bit more of an offensive punch. Maybe it comes from their bench and a player like Sienna Harvey. We'll see if that's the case. But good for her and a really good performance. And look, we aren't going to always play or always name the highest scoring person as a star of the week around the conference. It's impactful stuff. It's noteworthy stuff, like career highs for young players like a Sienna Harvey. It's great to see her putting up those numbers for Washington. Some other players that deserve some love. We mentioned Gerzon and Okinawa for Maryland. Gerzon had 25 points, 7 made threes against Central Connecticut. Oluchi had 22 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals in that game. Emma Shoemate was on fire last night from Michigan State, had 7 3-pointers en route to 22 points. Taylor Thomas of Northwestern, 30 points, 11 rebounds, and a loss to Loyola Chicago. Mia Jacobs, back-to-back double-doubles this week for Oregon. Mariah Murray of Penn State knocked down 6 3-pointers, scored 18 points in the win over VCU. And Jazzy Davidson, we mentioned, had 24 points against Cal. She averaged over 20 points a game this week. I would imagine when the awards come out, she'll probably be the Big Ten freshman of the week. But a good week for Jazzy Davidson, who continues to stack good weeks on good weeks, which is a good thing for Lindsey Gottlieb and USC. The Dribble Drive top 5. This is where we stand right now with this top 5. We're looking at the exact same between me and Dalton. I texted him this morning, got his top 5. We stand the same, and I kind of explained a little bit of it earlier, but I think the top 3 is the top 3. You got UCLA at 1. Their only losses to a really, really good Texas team. They have a ton of good top 25 wins. Michigan's at number 2. They killed Notre Dame. That's really their one big win they have, but it was a loss, but also a win in the way they competed down the stretch against UConn. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting for Michigan, who sits at number 2. Maryland's undefeated, and you could make an argument, hey, why are they behind Michigan? Maryland hasn't really tested itself a ton in the non-conference like they usually do. They did beat a good Kentucky team down in Puerto Rico, which is a nice feather in their cap. And they have that road win at Minnesota, which is a game they really should have lost. They found a way to win it. It's more so of the eye test for me that Michigan's just dominating games, and so is Maryland in most of their non-con games. But to me, it's the Michigan tight loss to UConn, and it's Maryland with a tight win. It's a road win in the Big Ten is always good, but a game that really they should have lost. And so if you think of that, they wouldn't have been ahead of Michigan had they lost that game. Obviously, you find a way to win. It's always better than losing. But I think Maryland sits in a good spot at number 3. Iowa at number 4. I mentioned it. Just don't feel like anybody's knocking down the door to take that spot. It's not that Iowa's been incredible and just securing that spot, but nobody else is pushing for it. And that's kind of the same reason why Nebraska sits at number 5. They've done nothing wrong. They've beaten every team on their schedule. They're 12-0, but they don't have any marquee wins, and still waiting on that opportunity for Nebraska, who does not play this week. They're going to play Monday when a lot of Big Ten teams resume play. for Big Ten play, but I have them at number 5. I have USC, Washington, Ohio State, Michigan State, the next 4 out in my top 9 of the Big Ten rankings. Michigan State jumped up 1 spot from 10 to 9 because Oregon slipped down a spot. But that's the top 5. Dalton and I both agree on 1 through 5, which I know is no fun, but that's where we stand with the Dribble Drive top 5. I put a call out for questions yesterday. If you're in the chat, feel free to throw a question in there. We'd love to try and address anything you have in terms of questions about Big Ten teams. Obviously, when I put a question request out on X, a lot of my followers tend to be Hoosier fans. We did get an Indiana question from Sean Donahue. After the bench's performance in Indiana's game against Western Carolina minus Phoenix, who had 11 points, does this probably lock in a very small rotation going into Big Ten games and 35-plus minutes for Shea and Lene going forward? I would say regardless of what the team looked like against Western Carolina, that's likely the case. I mean, Shea's averaging 35 minutes a game. Lene's averaging 33 minutes a game. They're going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting. They're hopeful to get Z back here soon. Zania Sokaguman. Terry Morin said she's still not practicing yet. They're still working on it. She's doing cardio on the side, but haven't been able to get her back in practice yet. They'll reevaluate when they come back from Christmas break. But I think Indiana, regardless of what you saw on Sunday against Western Carolina, this is a team that's going to have to rely on Shea. They're going to have to rely on Lene. And what you saw a little bit on Sunday was an Indiana team that kind of said, you know what, we're up pretty good here. Let's give Shea and Lene this fourth quarter off. And I think more importantly, let's give the rest of this team an opportunity to play without them, to put a little bit more on the shoulders of a Caffey or a Stodetine or a Makaleski or a Kiaku and try and figure out ways to score without Shea and Lene. Now, they did not do a great job of that in the fourth quarter. And again, the plane is going to be built primarily out of Shea and Lene for this team. But I think the more they can do things like that, the better it's going to be. But again, your competition steps up here. I was looking at the schedule for Indiana. They play Minnesota a week from today. Then after that, it's 6 straight ranked teams from New Year's Day through January. So it's a really difficult schedule for Indiana. All the schedules are going to be difficult in the Big Ten with 9 ranked teams. So you're going to get 35-plus minutes out of Lene and Shea as long as they stay healthy. The thing I would say that's going to be a boost for the Hoosiers is that when Z comes back, Odessa Noyan's been giving them good minutes starting at the 5 in her place. She's not Z. They're not the same player. But I think what that will do is then E will move back to the bench and be a really reliable option off the bench for Indiana. She's not the type of player who's going to score 15 points a game, but can she get you 7 points and 6 rebounds? Something like that. And most importantly, give Zania Sokaguman some time on the bench to rest and recover. I think the staff has more confidence now in Odessa Noyan moving forward to allow them to use her more. They might even play her along with Z against bigger teams in the Big Ten. But yeah, I understand the concern that there's not much bench. It's going to be a shorter rotation. That's always kind of been a Terry Morin thing, is when the Big Ten comes around, the rotation shrinks, and most teams do that. So they're going to rely heavily on their starting 5. Phoenix coming off the bench. I think Journey Kiaku's given them good minutes, and I think they'll continue to rely on her a little bit off the bench. And then when Noyan is off the bench and Z's back in the starting lineup, then you've probably got an 8-person rotation there, and then you move on from there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at when I look at the rotation for Indiana. I see your starting 5 of Nevaeh, Shea, Lene, and then Maya and Z. And then Odessa Noyan, Journey Kiaku, and Phoenix Stodetine off the bench. Kind of an 8-person rotation there for the Hoosiers moving forward. We'll see if that pans out. That was a question we got on X. Again, if you're watching us live, feel free to drop a question in the comments. We'll go ahead and shift into today's test, which is going to feature the Michigan State Spartans taking on Ole Miss. This is a top 25 battle down at the Cherokee Invitational. I did get a small scouting report from Dalton, texted him to see what his thoughts are. One thing to note, they're still a little bit banged up. Darren Halleck is still out, did not play yesterday. I don't know if they expect to play I would assume she's not going to play today. Grace Van Sluten's been a little banged up here recently. So they're not 100%. He said they're still working through lineups. Another new starting lineup yesterday. But it's going to be interesting to see because this is a tough, physical, big, athletic Ole Miss team. He kind of talked about it when they lost to Wisconsin that they got out toughed in that game, and this is a Ole Miss team that wins a lot of games by out toughing you. So Cody McMahon's the name you probably all know. That's now at Ole Miss. She was at Ohio State the last couple of seasons. She's now a Rebel and playing for Ole Miss. So this will be a fun matchup. Was kind of pulling up some of the stats from herhoopstats.com and looking at the comparison tool between these two teams. And these are two high-scoring teams, both top 20 in the country in scoring, but they do it in very different ways. Michigan State wants to light it up from the floor. They're fourth in the country in field goal percentage. They're fourth in two-point percentage and fourth in three-point percentage. They lead the country in effective field goal percentage. They score a bunch of points. They take advantage of possessions, 95 points a game. Now, it's not against the strongest schedule in the world, but they can fill it up. They shoot it at 40% from the three-point line. Ole Miss does it differently. They're going to be more physical. They're going to enter the ball into the post. They're going to let Cody McMahon do her job inside. They're top 40 in the country at two-point percentage, but they're in the bottom third in the country in three-point percentage. So they don't want to take a ton of three-pointers. In fact, they're bottom third in the country at three-point rates. They don't take a ton of them. They get 58% of their points from the two-pointers, and they get 21% of their points from the free throw line, which is top third in the country. They only get 20% of their points from the three-point line. So a Michigan State team that wants to score from all levels, they don't get to the free throw line a ton. They just want to jump shoot you to death. Ole Miss wants to be physical. They want to get to the free throw line. They want to get the ball inside. So it's conflicting styles here in this matchup, which is always fun. Styles make fights, and this will be a good one. This is a really good rebounding team in Ole Miss, top 30 in the country in rebounding. Michigan State kind of middle of the pack, but Michigan State shares the ball well, 23 assists. They don't turn the ball over, only 10 a game. They have the highest assist-to-turnover ratio in the country, and they do not foul a ton. That's been a big positive this year for Michigan State. That will be put to the test against this physical Ole Miss team. I think Ole Miss will win. I think it's a bummer that Michigan State is not 100% healthy for this one. No Theron Halleck's going to hurt if Grace Van Sluten's not 100%. They obviously need her to be strong and physical inside, and if she's hampered by an injury, that's going to make things more difficult for the Spartans. But it's good to see Michigan State getting tested here. They haven't really been tested yet this season. They lost at Wisconsin in their only real test. They beat Clemson. But this will be a really good test for Michigan State. They win this game, they could easily vault into the top 5 of the Dribble Drive top 5 standings. If they lose this game, I think they still kind of hang in that 8-9 range is where I have them right now. So that's tonight, 7:30. I believe that's just streaming only if you want to watch that game tonight, but a really good one. It's pretty much the only action that we have this week. It's a quiet week in Big Ten women's basketball as we continue to get closer to Big Ten play, which is going to come up this weekend. I'm going to see if we have a top 25 women's basketball poll. It looks like we might. Hold on. We might have a live poll for you. We do. Okay. So here's where we stand. Washington did drop out of the top 25. In fact, they're the 5th team out, according to votes received. Illinois and Oregon are receiving some votes as well. So that means 8 Big Ten teams are ranked. UCLA stays put at number 4. Michigan and Maryland stay put at 6 and 7. Iowa drops down 3 spots to number 14. Ole Miss is going to be number 15 in that matchup with Michigan State, who stays put at number 24. Nebraska is up 3 spots to number 20. Ohio State's up 2 spots to number 19. And USC is up 2 spots to number 17. So 8 Big Ten teams remain ranked in the top 25. Washington falls out. So let's, I mentioned it's not a heavy week in the Big Ten. This is all we've got in terms of our big game schedule. If you're watching us on YouTube, throw it up on the screen. For those of you listening to us in podcast form, it's 4 Big Ten games on Sunday, Illinois at Purdue gets us started at noon. The number 4 UCLA is at number 19. This graphic, if you're watching us, is before these live updates to the poll. But Ohio State hosting UCLA. That's kind of the marquee matchup of Sunday. That's at 2 o'clock on BTN. UCLA traveling cross country to take on the Buckeyes. And then Rutgers is at Michigan State at 2 o'clock, and Penn State on the road at Iowa at 4 o'clock. A triple header there on BTN. So I think you circle those top two as probably the most intriguing ones. Illinois going on the road. Not that Purdue has been a dragon slayer this year, but they have not lost at home. So Illinois having to go on the road, an early game, 11 a.m. Central Time at Purdue, who has not lost on their home floor. That'll be intriguing on Sunday. You've got UCLA at Ohio State. That's the big one. What does Ohio State do with Lauren Betts is one of the big questions to me. They don't have a ton of size down low this season, so I'll be curious to see if they go zone, if they double and triple Betts. That it's always a tough matchup, but you're going to have a lights-out shooting performance if you're Ohio State. You're going to need big games from Chance Gray, from Kennedy Cambridge, and obviously Jelani Cambridge has to be sensational in this one. But it'll be a good test for Ohio State, who lost to UConn. They beat West Virginia down in the Bahamas and haven't really faced much of a test since, so it'll be good to see them battle tested here at home against UCLA. That's Sunday. There's a full slate of games on Monday, and full disclosure, we're not sure what the schedule is going to look like this week with the holidays and one of the rare big Monday slates in the Big Ten. Looking at what's going on in conference play on Monday, just here on my I'm not going to share this on the screen, but USC is at Nebraska. That's a phenomenal game. Northwestern's at Washington, Wisconsin at Maryland, Michigan traveling cross country to take on Oregon is a good game, and Minnesota at Indiana could be a really important bubble game there in Bloomington on Monday evening. So there's a great slate of Monday games. I do know this, whether it's Dalton and me or just me, we will put out a preview episode for those games before those games. So it'll probably be somewhere around Saturday. Let me get through Christmas with the family, and then I think I'll probably record something on the 27th. We'll put that out as a full preview of the weekend, Sunday, Monday, of Big Ten games. We'll even dive a little bit further into some of these games that we have on the screen on Sunday, and then we'll do a full run through of the Monday games, and then hoping to have an episode I don't know, Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday to recap some of these games. So we'll do our best. We got to have an episode because the Dribble Drive Super Bowl is next Thursday on New Year's Day. So we definitely want to have an episode previewing that. But we'll try and get some podcasts in your feeds this week. We'll certainly have one Saturday or Sunday to preview the Monday games, and then we'll have one at some point to recap the Sunday, Monday games. Having a big slate of Monday games kind of throws the podcast off, because if we just have the episode on Monday, by the time you listen to it, you could get to the podcast on Tuesday and most of the show becomes irrelevant. So we do want to give those Monday games their love, and we will do that on an episode likely on Saturday, posted to your feed. So pay attention to your feeds there, to the Back Home Network YouTube channel. I don't know if we'll go live or not, but we'll certainly drop a podcast. And then we'll also have on the Dribble Drive WBB X page, we'll keep you up to date on our schedule for the week. But there are no games between today and Sunday, so there will be no action that we're missing. We do want to recap whatever happens tonight with Michigan State and Ole Miss. We want to preview those Monday games. We want to recap those Monday games and then kind of set you up. We don't want to do a podcast where we're recapping or we're previewing like 20 games over 8 days. We want to kind of break this thing up. So we're hoping to do an episode Saturday to preview the Monday games, an episode maybe Tuesday to recap the Sunday and Monday games and get you ready for the next week. And then we'll start to get back on track with those weekly Monday episodes. There's not a ton of times this season where Mondays become chaotic like this, but a week from today, there are 5 Big Ten games and several of them worth spending some time discussing. So we will certainly make sure to do that sometime this week. Well, that is it. A little bit of a shorter episode today, but again, with the holiday season, the games are fewer and far between. but it's going to really ramp up next week. And we're back in the Big Ten play. And this is where it just puts a smile on my face because we finally get to see these teams play each other. We finally get to see these teams go one-on-one. We get to see Indiana, Minnesota in a huge bubble game for bragging rights that could potentially loom large in March. We get to see UCLA tested on the road, Michigan tested on the road, 2 cross-country trips for the top 2 teams in the league. Obviously, as we continue to get deeper in the season, we'll see them play each other. It's going to be great. Big Ten season resumes on Sunday, and we go Big Ten the rest of the way, which is going to be phenomenal. We'll have Dalton back next week to discuss all things from his trip down to North Carolina and the Dribble Drive Super Bowl, which is on January 1st. Indiana and Michigan State play at noon on New Year's Day. Looking forward to that one. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. We are really thankful for everybody's for the people who tune into this podcast, who have tuned in live, who listen to us. We appreciate it. We wouldn't want to do it without you. Well, that's it for our episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Back Home Network YouTube. Follow us on X, Dribble Drive WBB. We'll talk to you guys on Saturday or Sunday for a preview of Monday's games. Until then, I'm Austin Render saying so long from the Dribble Drive.